let us get started because we are on Trump. And a lot of his executive orders, over 100 of them, are domestically related. He is making a splash in foreign policy. He suspended all U.S. foreign aid. So I'm curious about what the implications of this move is for Ukraine in particular, because Ukraine relies a lot on U.S. foreign aid. Your thoughts?
It's interesting because the way I view this is Trump just gave Putin 90 days to win the war. Basically, he's telling Putin, I'm cutting off aid. You got to do what you got to do in 90 days, because afterwards we're going to do a review. And if we don't have some sort of agreement by then, we will have to consider how we want to go forward. That's how I'm interpreting it. Now, I'm not saying that Putin's going, yeah, I'm all for that. I don't think Putin really gives a damn. I don't think the Russians give a damn about this. They will do what they need to do. But Putin did meet with his national security team and say he's looking forward to talking with President Trump about Ukraine. And I think while this 90 days of frozen aid to Ukraine is being implemented, there will be a meeting, or at least a conversation between Putin and Trump, maybe several conversations. And I think that there is an agreement to be reached. This is also a message to Zelensky and to Europe and to NATO that they just simply don't have a vote in any of this. They don't matter. They don't count. This is about the United States and Russia coming up with a deal. I mean, Trump basically put Europe on notice, NATO on notice, 5% or die. And NATO can't make the 5%. Trump knows this. And so this is basically Trump signaling to NATO, it's over. It's finished. It's time to understand that, and maybe we can break up amicably, or we can do it the hard way. But the bottom line is, again, 80 years of or whatever, that's not 80, 75 years, I think was the anniversary of American NATO relationship is finished. It's over. And this is the brave new world that we're entering into.
During Trump's inauguration address, Scott, he didn't mention Ukraine, Russia, any of it, not once. What did you make of that? Because the only foreign policy remarks he gave were almost offhand about the Panama Canal and China owning it. But that almost seemed like he was just talking at that point, that was a little bit off the cuff. And it wasn't really about any kind of specific foreign policy initiative or goal. But Ukraine, not one word.
Trump was speaking to the American people about the domestic problems that we have here in America and his solutions to these problems. Again, this isn't judgment on my part. I'm not sitting here saying anything other than the facts. The facts are the president spoke to the American people, especially those who elected him, and said, I am going to get the things done that I told you I was going to try and get done domestically. Foreign policy, that's a conversation between Trump and the respective foreign leaders that he's going to deal with. It's not a conversation between Trump and the American people. And I think that's one of the reasons why you didn't hear so much about foreign policy in this speech or in the speeches. And I think you're going to see that that's going to be his approach going forward, that this isn't going to be asking the American people permission to do something overseas. This is a man who is going to embody the concept of unitary executive, again, for better or worse, and move forward as he sees fit when it comes to how America interfaces with the nations that represent the biggest problems to the United States, at least as Donald Trump views the world. And again, I just want to remind everybody, there's only one viewpoint that counts right now in Donald Trump's America, and that's Donald Trump's. And I'm not happy with it. I believe that America, was founded on, constitutional principles of, the separation of powers, checks and balances. I've never been a fan of the unitary executive, but also I have to recognize that America today is fundamentally broken, and that we're so broken that the owner's manual doesn't work anymore, and now we're paying the price. We are getting a man who has um, autocratic tendencies in charge at a time when Americans are willing, apparently, to tolerate a lot of autocratic tendencies.
Yeah, and I'm not holding my breath. There's a long way to go. There's a long way for the Trump administration to be belligerent. And right now, it seems like, though, that the Trump administration's big focus is to shift the U.S. foreign policy agenda away from Ukraine. That is quite clear. So, uh, but one thing I wanted to ask you, Scott, was how then are these early talks going to happen between Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump? Because after the inauguration, that was one of the first things that came out, was that his team, his administration is going to engage in this. How do you think this is going to transpire?
Remember, it takes two to tango. And clearly the U.S.-Russia relationship is a two-way street, not a one-way street. So right off the bat, it's not going to be dictated by Donald Trump. It will be a negotiation with the Russians on, how they're going to talk, what forum, etc. Both sides want to talk, so it isn't going to be a difficult negotiation. I do believe it's going to start off as a phone call and maybe a couple phone calls. But I do think a physical meeting within this 90-day window is a necessity to advance this cause. This war is going to end not because policy experts in the United States have dictated some sort of terms that Russia is going to have to accept. This war is going to end because Vladimir Putin sat down with Donald Trump and they have a frank exchange of ideas. I think that Trump can put a lot on the table that would be attractive to Vladimir Putin that goes beyond simply Ukraine. And this is important because, again, when we speak of Russia's special military operation in Ukraine, sometimes we become too hyper-focused on the Russian troops on Ukrainian soil, and we forget that the reason this happened was, for instance, NATO expansion. The primary objective here is to keep NATO out of Ukraine. That's something Trump apparently has already recognized as a problem and is apparently willing to accept. This is a major shift in policy direction for the United States. And the other thing is, the Russians were always talking about, again, remember December of 2021, December 17th to be exact, Russia put two draft treaties on the table, one with NATO, one with the United States, speaking about the need to create a European security framework. And again, I think that Trump, given his attachment or lack thereof to NATO and European institutions and American-European entanglements, Trump is more than happy to sit down with Russia and say, hey, what can we do to make Europe, a safe and secure place for everybody? And so I think, Putin, those are his strategic objectives. And in many cases, what's happening in Ukraine are more tactical and operational to achieve these strategic objectives. So if Trump is able to just jump over and say, we can accomplish many of your strategic objectives, but we have to bring this thing to an end, I think you'll see that the Russians are able to do that which they are able to do constitutionally. That means that there won't be a frozen front line. There won't be, European troops patrolling the borders and things like that. Russia has some very simple things. What is Russia? Is Russia, and they need the West to recognize that. The U.S. has already indicated that early on that lifting sanctions, at least some of the sanctions against Russia, might be a way of signaling, how the future could be. I just think there's a lot of room for very constructive discussions between these two men, but these are discussions that will take place between these two men. Once they discuss and they build the framework, then they'll turn the floor over to the, to Keith Kellogg and Ushakov and others who will, nail down the details. But this is going to be solved by Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump.
Scott, do you foresee the pressure? There will be a lot of pressure coming from neocons, NATO, the entirety of Europe, but even big elements inside of Washington too, who want to see this conflict continue in some way. what do you think is going to happen in terms of the pressure? You know, it's a whole new day. It's not 2016 anymore. It's not 2018 Helsinki when Putin and Trump met. It's a very different geopolitical landscape. But do you think that the pressure may be too much for Trump to be able to get something like this done?
No, we're dealing with a dictator right now. Danny, he just revoked the security clearance of John Bolton and 51 people who signed a letter he didn't like. Okay, Donald Trump, this is the thing people need to understand. He controls security clearance. He's finally woken up to that reality. And of the people that he revoked, these are former directors of the CIA who historically come back and advise the CIA and administrations on sensitive matters. These are people who, had the crown jewels read to them. They know everything. And he said, you're not part of the system anymore. You're done. I just gave you how he's going to handle dissent. There's a good chance that they're going to revoke the security clearances of every member of Congress who was on the J6 committee. Do you understand what's happening here? This isn't unconstitutional. It's not the way I'd like to see things happen. It's, I believe in free speech and dissent and all this stuff. I'm just telling you how the Donald Trump approach is going to be. If you get in my way and I deem it to be inconsistent with your duties and responsibilities, as an American, official, I'll just revoke your clearance. And he has the sole authority to do that. The president of the United States is the ultimate determiner of what is classified and what isn't, and who has access to this and who doesn't. To give you an example, if, I don't have security clearances. If I were invited to the White House and they brought in a document that's, classified top secret, code word, and the president thought that I needed to have access to it, he doesn't have to ask permission of anybody. He can pull that document out and go, yeah, I declassified here, read it. And that's it. It's done. But if I walk in and I have all the security clearances in the world and the president decides that my behavior is inconsistent, he can just say, I revoke your security clearance. You're done. And there's nothing I can do about it. So he knows. I'm just telling you, this is a whole new presidency. He learned a lot from the first 4 years. This guy was screwed royally by the establishment, by the deep state, by, the neocons, by the think tank, by all those people who didn't want him to succeed. They no longer count. And if you look at Marco Rubio, okay, go back.
I don't want to look at him. No, but keep going.
Well, go look at all the statements that boy made leading up to their anti-Trump statements, strong this, strong that. He is Donald Trump's pet poodle because he finally understands the name of the game. And the name of the game is I serve Donald Trump. Now, I'd like to believe is I serve the Constitution. And because Trump is president, Trump is the, is the guy that is invested with these powers. But the fact of the matter is, you will not last in this Trump government if you don't do exactly what Trump tells you to do. And I'm sad to say, even if that, brings in things that shouldn't be done under the Constitution. We all saw the executive order he signed about birthright, citizen birthright. I mean, we're now going to get involved in a major. He even got a Kamala Harris, a paragraph in there. And again, I'm no fan of Kamala Harris. I'm really not. I'm so happy and for all the people, just so you guys know, for all the people out there bitching and moaning about Donald Trump, Kamala Harris would have killed you all within 6 months. So screw you. Okay, she was going to take us down a path that led to a nuclear war with Russia. End of story. No debate. That was the direction we're heading. So as bad as this, whatever you want to call this thing that's happening with Trump, at least it's got entertainment value that won't get us killed in the next 4 years. I say entertainment value. It's not good. I felt my heart broke for the immigrants who had the app closed down and now they don't even have their appointments. This is a whole new world. Whatever you thought America was isn't anymore. It's changed. But, he signed this executive order about birthright. I don't think it's going to survive constitutional scrutiny. But then again, you never know. He has stacked the Supreme Court with a majority of conservative justices who are scared to death of this man. remember, they're the ones who said you can commit any crime as president and we can't touch you. So you think he really cares about the Supreme Court? He wants the Supreme Court to rubber stamp everything he does, and he's expecting that. I'm against that. I believe the Supreme Court should be an independent arbiter of constitutionality. But we're in a brave new world. I liken it because people always say, well, it sounds like you're defending Trump. No, but have you ever seen those movies, Danny, where, like a mountain climbing movie, the two climbers are going up and, oh, they fall. I mean, we even saw it in, one of my favorite movies, the Avengers, Infinity Stones or Endgame. I think it was Endgame. And they're holding on to each other. You got to cut the rope. I'm never going to cut the rope. If you don't cut the rope, we both go down. I'm never going to cut the rope, but to save the one, they cut the rope and the person dies. I believe America's at that point. All the things that are nice in terms of, wokeness, or whatever you want to call it, all the peripheral stuff is dragging us down. I want it. I believe it needs to happen, but we are literally off the cliff, hanging down there, and we got to shed the stuff that's going to kill us. And Trump right now is the guy with the knife, and he's looking at the ropes attached to things, and he's cutting. He's cutting all the things that he blames for bringing America down. And I want to live. So I'm willing to let him cut. And I know that's going to piss a lot of people off, but we're at the point right now where America is fundamentally broken. We are headed down a path of civil war or self-destruction, so all the things you say what America stands for, all the things I say what America stands for, don't matter if we're gone, if we're finished. And so this is a revolutionary moment. And that's why I called it a revolution afterwards. And it's revolutionary domestically, and it's revolutionary in terms of foreign policy. This is about trying to stop a sinking ship from going under. This is about doing emergency repairs, plugging holes, making hard decisions. And it's going to piss a lot of people off, including myself. I'm planning on starting something, going in. It's basically a Trump report card, because here's the thing. I voted for the guy, and I'm not going to sit back and just say, do what you want. I still believe that the people that we vote have to be held accountable for what they do in our name. And so I'm going to hold this guy accountable for what he does in my name. And I think every American should, but we also have to understand the context of this. This isn't like, he's taking, a smoothly functioning society and trying to break it. He's taking a fundamentally broken society and trying to save it. Whether he'll make the right decisions or not, we don't know. But, I think we do have to understand that whatever we thought America was isn't, at least for the next 4 years. It's going to be something totally different.
For me, when you say a revolution, for me, I believe that we are indeed in a revolutionary moment. This is a moment in U.S. history that is unprecedented. And I believe Donald Trump is playing a very particular role. There's a reason why he gets voted in. There's a reason why he is taking the positions he's taking. And I don't agree with most of the policies that he pushes. Definitely not, because ultimately he comes from a particular class, and we saw the billionaires, the oligarchs who are all there. He's going to serve those people. But when it comes on this fundamental issue of Ukraine, the U.S.'s standing in the world, I don't believe he'll necessarily succeed in reversing this decline that he says he's going to reverse. But I do believe that he actually wants to try. And what that looks like is going to be what we should be preparing for, because it will look like, on the one hand, maybe pulling out of Ukraine, and on the other hand, who really knows? It could be many different avenues, and they could spell disaster.